team Breathe Like a Fish. Sexy man, sexy man. He ain't listening at me, Hobbs.
Hey guys, I've been coming in here for, like they said, 8-9 years, either talking about my apparel company or fishing. I prefer to talk about fishing, but I always like to start with Steve and Tiger, thanking these guys for doing this for so long. It's amazing, I know I've done a lot of club stuff over the years, a lot of effort puts in this, and Steve, they're tireless, because this stuff could go away, tomorrow, and they just continue and grow and grow. I'd like to give them a hand. So. Normally Mike and I did one last year. John's helping. First of all, who in here typically, this will help these guys, do y'all mostly fish out of a boat, most everyone here, when you go? Some of you, anybody kayak fish? Okay, so we got a good bunch of kayakers. Anybody just a shore guy, a wader, any of that kind of stuff? There's one.
Pier.
All right.
Pier,
okay. You'll be my hardest guy. So, I'm here to talk about, and this is a kind of a cool thing, is I'm not a captain. I'm just a regular guy. I fish tournaments. I've been throwing artificial lures pretty much forever, since my teenage years. I've done plenty of live bait fishing, but typically the tournaments I fish in and things like that, I only throw artificial. So I've learned a lot over the years. There's probably anybody in here I could probably sit down with anybody in here and get tips from you guys too. So that's the great thing about fishing, is that, I'm not, somebody that's, a captain or something like that. That's too much work. I'll let Mike in there do that stuff.
Yeah.
I ain't the captain either. I'm the token black man. That's what I'm doing.
Exactly. So what we typically do is kind of bounce stuff off. I like to do a certain kind of fishing. I love low tide fishing. That's my favorite thing to do. These guys sometimes when they're bait fishing, it's better to have a higher tide or incoming tide for bait. So what I typically do, it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you a little story. I took a friend of mine, and we're older, but for some reason we decided we wanted kids when we were 40. So we both have a 7- and 8-year-old, and we're like in our 39s. So we took them fishing, and we went on negative tide. I like the new moon. If y'all don't know tides well, on the new moon and the full moon, you get extreme lows. In the summer, they're in the evening. In the winter, they're in the morning. Typically, that's kind of the rule of thumb. So I love low tide fishing. So we were down in Placida, and my buddy's been fishing forever, and I said, come do my kind of fishing. He always wants to do his kind, so let's do mine. So we go in Placida Sound, dead negative tide, bars sticking out of the water, grass everywhere, and I got a little 16-9 Ghost, got it jacked up. We're running through, like this, dodging sandbars, and then we pop down in a hole, and we have all of Bull Bay and all of Placida Sound to ourselves, because nobody will go in there. It's scary. That's why the kayak guys would love this. So we stopped there, and we got our 2 little kids with us, and then you weave around these potholes, right? You see the bar sticking out of the water. You can see where it's deep. You can see mullet jumping. So you want to look for that, and it's the same here on the South Shore. I do the same thing here. So we go in there, and this perfect hole comes up, and I'm like, I wanted to cast in there, to be honest with you, but we have our kids with us, so I had to let the kids do it first. So Cooper, he's 7, throws a white jerkbait in this pothole, all by himself, threw it, 30 feet, kid cast, 33-inch snook was in this hole, and stuck it, caught it, so that's pretty cool. Not a lot of 7-year-olds or anybody in here, including myself, at 7 on an artificial caught an oversized snook. So that's the kind of stuff that are in these holes. That's why I like low tide fishing. And you can learn this, like I said, we just came off the new moon. So in the evening, whether you're inside the bar over here, South Shore, there's a ton of stuff over in St. Pete. Just low tide fishing for me when it comes to artificials in the summer, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So in the winter, you know, you can sort of fish all day and, you know, do the tides and different things. I typically throw jigs with like an 1/8 or 1/4 ounce jig head with some kind of solid plastic, a paddle tail or a jerk bait. That's typically what I always fish. I throw top water, all this other stuff, but you know, I don't know if you guys, a lot of people are scared of the low tide. You guys fish, does anybody fish some of these low tides? Kind of, I know that anybody in a kayak is going to say they do. Kayak, I hate kayak, I'm kidding. They know all my secrets. Kayakers know my secrets. Ray, you over there? Do you ever fish the low tide?
Always.
Yeah, Ray throws artificials. He understands it. So what it really does for you is it condenses the fish. You know, and obviously, you know, it makes it a little bit easier. They don't just jump in the boat, but I'll show you some baits in a little bit. I'm going to let Mike and them kind of start on their deal. We'll just kind of bounce it back and forth. So, Mike, you can go into what you, Mike's kind of sick, so.
Yeah. And I'm just the opposite of him. He like negative tides, low tides. And I like to fish on the higher tides, mainly because I fish bait. And so I like to plan my trips around the high tide. And when they're out on the flats and stuff and on the negative tides, I'm still usually trying to catch bait or, you know, doing the bait grind somewhere. And I try to plan my trips around the high tide. I like to go 2 hours before and an hour after, dead high. And I like for it to get up to like anything over 1.9 is perfect. And so what these reds will do when they out on the flats and on the low negative tides and these potholes that he's talking about, whenever the tide come in, it's basically all through Cockroach everywhere. You got passes. And these, I call it a highway. Each one of them is like a highway. These reds are gonna come through there and they're gonna filter out into the mangroves in the valley. So I like the beat bushes, and when they come in, a lot of them will pile up on the different mangrove bushes. And which ones, it's a technique to finding out which one's holding the fish. You know, I can't tell it all, but if you get out there and put your trolling motor down or on your kayak and just start beating bushes, you end up finding a bush that is loaded with fish. And here's one of the mistakes a lot of anglers make. You know, they're going through and they hit a redfish, and they'll take a picture, send it to their wife, do whatever they want to do with it, and then they release it, and then they keep going. That's the number one mistake I see people make. If it's one redfish under there, it's 20 of them. That's just it. Always think that it's 20. Even if it ain't number one, keep beating it like it is 20 under there. And I found that out. I've had some bushes right here in Cockroach when we've caught 55 redfish under one bush. I'm talking.
Were
You
there
can see them.
different ones?
Huh?
Same one?
I don't know. Yeah. But and we probably, you know, when we was counting, you know, multiplied a couple of times, you know. But it was close. It was over 50 fish. And the reason I'm saying that is I think the mistake that a lot of anglers make is they don't, it's a pattern to everything out there. Once you learn the pattern and figure it out, you'll be able to produce more fish. And when you're out there fishing, just don't be out there fishing to kill time. Always be trying to document and figure out why the fish was biting and why they done what they was doing. So, and just, that's one of the mistakes I see people make. They'll catch a fish and keep going instead of stop, camping out and seeing what else is there. And he do the same type of fishing I do when they come in the bushes. Yep. I let him.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Mike says, man. That's the thing. Those pockets, they'll hold fish. I mean, we have these certain bushes that hold fish. For these redfish, you'll go there sometimes 3, 4, 5 days in a row. The fish are stacked in there. We'll run a trip the next day, go in there, first bait, you're all amped up. Guys, we caught 20 fish here yesterday.
Yeah.
Soak a bait in there for 10 minutes, won't get bit. It's like they move. But you have to have the confidence in the spot. You got to build these spots. You go down the mangrove shoreline, I do. Now, if I was a redfish, I'd be there. If I was a redfish, I'd be there. And just look at these pockets.
Can I ask you questions like if I was sitting out here, 'cause I don't bait fish?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're looking at the shoreline, are you looking for, I mean, I know kind of what I look for, but are you looking for that one that's got that cave up under there?
That's what I want. I want the most
Yeah.
shade and the
Yeah.
hardest spot to get into. And that's usually the most productive spots for me.
Right.
I'm looking for whatever boat I see catching fish. I take a meal and another, and come back later.
Hey, Mike, I'm gonna go right more.
What kind of boat you got?
Huh?
What kind of boat you got?
I got a Dorado. Yeah.
What color?
Yeah. It's wrapped in KFC.
I look for those spots that are, the smaller spots. People seem to pass by those smaller pockets. They want a big pocket where 4 or 5 people can fish in there at one time. Some of my most productive spots are, we'll have to take turns. I'll literally have to pull in there with my clients. Hey guys, when I take turns, some of them that can't cast, I'll pitch it in there for them, and it's a one-person deal. And we'll sit there and catch 20 redfish out of the hole. And those seem to be more productive spots than nature. But yeah,
I got a question for you guys. So with the tournament coming up, it's the largest redfish. It's not about quantity, it's the quality fish. There's 3 of you up there. I'm guessing every one of y'all has a different technique to catch the largest redfish. What do you all recommend for the largest redfish?
Well, I'm gonna be in the tournament, so I'm gonna tell everybody in here, go beat bushes, and you will get the big redfish.
Yeah. My opinion is where you fish, because basically the St. Pete area typically has the bigger redfish, the oversized. Not that we haven't caught plenty here, but they do move. I mean, they're around. I mean, they won it right down here before.
Right.
And it was pretty big.
if I was gonna fish a tournament and try to catch the biggest redfish, I'd be nowhere near the bushes. I'd be outside the outside sandbar, on an outer bar somewhere, on a lower tide, and fish the biggest cut bait you can find on the pond.
Yeah, and this year been a little strange. Anybody that's been fishing for redfish can tell you
What's the big redfish around here? How much is the big redfish around here weigh?
30, anything over 30. Anything over 30 inches. And
30 inches?
yeah, I've got so far this year, my biggest, and it came from up under the bush, was 34 inches. I mean, I got a 30 today from up under the bush. And last year it wasn't really like that. This year, the red fishing has been, I can't really put a pattern to it. I don't even know
It's
what's
been
going
a
on.
weird year for
I don't know what's going on. It's just, you go.
last year, last spring. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, we were wrecking the fish. Mike said 50 fish days. That was common. I mean, that's not a one-time occurrence. It was
Are you
weeks.
throwing live bait or shot cut bait?
Say it again.
Are you throwing live bait or cut bait?
Both. Seriously, it's live and it's cut.
And I want to add to that because I was talking to Mike.
What are you using for live bait?
I use white bait. Yeah.
He's a lot of pinfish too.
But I asked him the same thing a lot of times, and he had a day or two a couple weeks ago where they weren't hitting the bait, he was catching them on shrimp, which is kind of weird in the summer.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting that when he told me that. So that's another thing. I didn't know Mike brought shrimp with him all the time. He leaves no stone unturned.
And they die and switch up. I mean, you could go in one day with shrimp and beat them down, and then go in with white bait and beat them down, and it's just, I like to have a little of both, and see what they want, and this year, like I said, last year I could have told you to use this bait and you would catch them. I really can't do it this year, because they've been switching up so much,
About 2 weeks ago, 43 to 41 is what won the DeSoto, and that was caught in the pass. It wasn't even in a place where most people would fish for redfish.
Yeah, you get those
They
big
probably
reefers
8,
coming
12 feet of
offshore.
water, and they're just hogs, man.
Yep. You get those big spawners come in from offshore. We catch them offshore. We're grouper fishing sometimes 40, 45 inches in 100 feet of water. Those big spawners.
Just keep an eye on Facebook when you start seeing those guys and figure out where they're at. Official, they hang there, they'll live there all summer. Like wherever they're catching them, they'll be there.
They match up with a 44 and a 41 inch snook too.
Yeah. So, but I was going to go over a couple. When I talk about soft plastics or whatever, this is a jig head. Y'all know what a jig head is? Open hook. You know, and I put a soft plastic on there. Most people probably know what this is. Anytime I can possibly get away with an open hook, I fish it. And you know, unless it's really, really grassy or whatever, which you know, I may have to go to something weedless like that, a weighted weedless hook. I don't like to throw these. It's my last resort. I really try to get by with that. Sometimes you have to reel a little bit faster. But you get a lot more hookups on an open hook. And some of this pothole stuff that I was talking about, that's typically sand holes anyway. So 1/4 ounce is fine. You don't have to worry about 1/8 ounce I use when it's more grassy. So 1/4 ounce or even bigger. I have a couple of friends that use it to the next one up. But you can just slow roll that. There's several brands out there that, you know, that all work. And this is a good story because that snook, we pulled all the way into this place. And my buddy said, "What do you want him to put on there?" I said, "It doesn't matter." You know, you hear all this stuff about baits, and yeah, I mean, it does matter in some cases, but these fish are just trapped in there. I said, "Just get me a white jerk bait." And I think literally we had the cheapest, worst one that you would buy, it, you know, shaped wrong and just something I had left over, somebody gave me or something. I said, "Just put that on." You know, and so it just always, doesn't always matter. I mean, some baits wiggle better in the water. You know, so it's, you know, there's some quality stuff out there. You're a DOA guy, right? Obviously DOA makes good stuff.
DOA and Mirror.
Yeah, and Mirror. So I typically fish this in potholes. Now there'll be trout, flounder, redfish, and everything eats it. So it's a great bait. In the summer, in the pothole fishing, this is the, you know, in my opinion, this is a good color. I use white. You know, you just have to experiment with that stuff. But if I'm not pothole fishing, I do a lot more plug fishing in the summer. Just like these guys where the bait's all over the flat. I love topwater. It's my favorite thing to throw is topwater. If you hear me say suspending baits, it's hard to beat the Maridine. It's cheap. It works. It goes about this far into the water. Looks like a greenback. Everything eats it. Great bait. I have friends that fish in the redfish tournaments with me, and they only throw suspending baits, which, you know, and they do pretty good. So you know, now if I'm pothole, like I said, jig only. Fun fishing, I love plug fishing. So if it's 2 foot of water, I'm gonna be throwing like a Maridine. If it's 1.5 feet or something, throwing the top water, something along those lines. So do you guys fish the Maridine? I'm sure it's pretty popular. I mean, you probably caught fish on it, hadn't you?
Well, does the time of day matter?
Not with this. Not with that one.
Not at all.
With that. It's
The very top water sometimes, it depends.
you know, I typically quit throwing top water about 9 in the morning, but I have people, C.A. Richardson, he's coming here and talk to y'all. He throw them at 2 in the afternoon. I mean, they'll, you know, and that's cloud cover and all this other stuff that factors in. But, you know, tail and redfish are really hard to get to eat unless you're in Louisiana where they eat everything.
Snicker wrapper.
Yeah. So I just threw it some recently and didn't catch them. And then I went 2 weeks later and saying I did catch them. I literally had to go unweighted hook with a gulp shrimp. That's all I could get them to eat. And I just plop it on their head and let it sit there and they'd find it. They're hard to get tail and redfish to eat sometimes, you know. So those are some of the techniques. And I mean, you guys all throw pretty much jigs. How many guys in here don't fish artificial at all? I mean, you're slick, just all bait. Bait. Lazy. I know you throw it.
I don't throw a jig, I'm all about it.
Well, the reason I brought my pole, and I'm gonna shut up a minute and let them guys talk, but I can talk about artificials all day. This is like a 7.4. It's a Crowder. I'm kidding, Kelly. It's a bull bait. For a tournament gear, it's 10-pound braid. Now I've been fun fishing, so that's probably 30-pound leader. But in a tournament, redfish tournament, I use 20. Do any of y'all cast like this? Okay, because that ain't gonna work. Okay, you know, or the guy that holds his finger like that and does that. When you cast, you have to learn to cast a long way if you're gonna be an artificial guy. this, you know, that kind of stuff is fine for some fishing, but when it comes to, and I don't want to tear the ceiling down, I mean, it's gotta be a, you know, ratchet, hand on the bottom, you know what I'm saying? So that's how you get it out there. That's why I use 10 pound, so I can cast it further. I'd love to use 15, but, you know, it probably goes 5 yards, 10 yards further with 10 pound. So that's the first thing I tell people when they say, "We take me fishing." I'm like, you know, and they get in the boat and they give me, you know, one of these. I said, "Let's go get some bait." We're gonna
Let me call Mike and find out where he's at.
I've done it.
So don't have your dots on.
I only throw artificial, and he got in the boat and he gave me one of these things like that, you know, and I'm like, okay, let's go get some shrimp because we ain't catching none today. So it's very important to be able to cast well. And I have my little kids casting fun. They catch fish on artificials, you know. So, I mean, it's not terribly hard to do. But it has a lot to do with, you know, this is a pretty light setup. And because I'm gonna be throwing it all day. I'm not, you know, just putting it in a rod holder. So it's a great way to do that. And that's the first thing I tell people. It's nothing to do with fishing spots. It's nothing to do with bait. It's being able to cast and get it out there. You know, we may throw, you know, especially in the winter when most of our tournaments are, the redfish are spooky. And so they hear your trolling motor, they hear the boat. So you got to get a cast out there, you know, 40 yards sometimes to have a chance. So, you know, it's very important to be able to cast and cast efficiently. And that's the first thing the first thing I do with people when I take them is work on their casting, typically for a few minutes. So
What flex rod can you cast the furthest with?
ask him.
What was the question?
What flex rod can you cast the furthest with?
Medium heavy, if you got a good action, fast action tip like what he has there. Another difference is the guides. See how all the guides are leaning forward on the rods? They're Fuji K guides that are really designed for casting distance and sensitivity, so you have a little bit of both. And that gets you another 30 feet, 20 feet, depending on.
Yeah, and you know, the standard rod out there in the industry is like a 7-footer, which is fine. I like no less than a 7-4, and I just was talking to him about 7-9, as long as it's light. I don't want a broomstick in my hand, you know, but I gotta have that extra few inches on there to make that extra long cast. And so it's very important when you're throwing this, because it just, unless you're throwing topwater, if you have an 1/8 ounce jig on there, I mean, you're throwing into the wind, you're not gonna hit that wall over there, you know. So it's just important to cast well, and that's the first thing if you start to experiment with artificial lures is, you know, just, you know, get your casting in there.
Yeah, all of our rods are made around the tournament fishermen for that reason. Because I also tournament fish when I get a chance. And casting distance is important, especially when you get those fish that are spooky. I've been working all week by these captains out here. Give them all sore lips, you know. The weekend warriors, you got to get that distance. You know, you just have to do it. So that's one of the rods there. Of course, you know, Stones has them now in Lakeland. I don't know if anybody's from Lakeland, but they have the rods as well. So you do have some over here to check out. So anyway, that's what I've got.
My favorite to throw the furthest is the 7.9 AR Sniper bullbag,
Which is what that
which
is.
is that one. I can almost, with a 1/4 ounce spoon, I can almost spool the reel.
Make sure you have a lot of line if you're using this kind of rod, because you will throw. This is an 1/8 ounce jig that I can bing that wall from here all day long without question. With what's on there, which is 1/8 of an ounce. So distance is important, especially if you get a lot of clear water. They see you. You know, turn off your depth finder because you got that sonar making noise. Try to be quiet. Don't have the kids slamming live well lids and doors. Just, you know, that's some of the techniques.
Or spouses or fishing buddies.
Yeah, but let me speak on something where he just made bait fishermen look like punks.
I don't do it because it's too hard.
Yeah, you don't have to cast far. You can sit there with a 6.9 and sit there and just be itching. I can do it with a cane pole. With a cane pole.
Here's the difference with the bait fishermen fishing the bushes anyway. You gotta be accurate. I'm talking about you gotta get it right in that right spot, or you ain't gonna get 8. That's just it. So we ain't really focusing on long casts. We want to get it like I'm talking about. Sometimes those fish want it within 7 or 8 inches. If you go too far to the right or left, they won't touch it. And some of the holes is you know,
Big rounds up.
big as round as this sometimes. I'm exaggerating, but anyway, it seems like it's like that sometimes, and you gotta get that bait up under there and skip it up under there. I use 10-pound braid and 20-pound lead on mine, and I don't go no bigger than a 1-aught hook. That's all I use. People show up with me sometimes to fish, and you know they break they rod out, and they got 40-pound braid on there, 60-pound leader, number 5 4-aught hook, and I'm like, I see why you ain't catching no fish, you know. And people are afraid to go smaller, you know, and you don't have to have beefed up gear. You just have to have good stuff. But the smaller it is the more natural it's gonna look when you're using live bait, you know. So when I break out the 1-aught hooks I use, and I mean they are like this, and people laugh at me. You catch them, you don't catch nothing with that. And I tell them I could take that same hook and stick it in any of y'all and control all of y'all with it, you know. So, and I've been on the boat, and usually when I see people and they got the wrong size hook or whatever, I don't say nothing, and I get like 6 or 7 fish ahead of them, and then I tell them, hey, change your hook, man, and they change it and start getting bit, you know, because you want that bait to look natural, and so that's a tip that I could.
Since you throw the bushes so much, what size rod do you prefer since you're throwing bushes?
I got 7 9.
You have a 7-9?
So an 8-footer's about
Huh?
an 8-footer?
Yeah, basically, and I'm kind of unorthodox when it comes to rods, and you get all these guys saying you gotta have this and that. Well, you give me whatever you want, I'm gonna use it. That's just it. So, and I'm gonna make it work.
I
You
got
know?
a Barbie pole for you.
Yeah, I'll put them on the
For
bar.
Monday, I'll bring you a Barbie pole.
So, but I like the longer rods you could get. I could get more accurate casts with them. You know, so.
Usually how far are you away from the bushes?
It depends, man. If it's some days we're 2 or 3 feet from it, and just you can't even cast. You kind of like just pitching in.
Cable.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah. So, and then some days, we get back far. It depends on who I'm fishing with and if they can cast or not. I usually start out far, and then I, kind of gauge and see how my clients or friends or if they can get it in there. And then, if they can't get it in the hole, I move them a little closer, So, and you can't, the old theory about, you gotta be quiet, you're gonna spook the fish. It depends, the type of fishing I do, beating the bushes, you don't have to, I don't think you have to be quiet. You can slam the live well, you can put on some red rolls, or loop wire. You do whatever you want to. Those fish are in there for a reason. It's because it's cool, and that's what they're pushing bait at. And, so you don't have to be like all quiet. And a lot of people think you got to be in the tiptoeing, but now if you fishing like potholes out on the flat and you got a big school of red, anything you do, you can burp and they'll take off. But when they move undercover, they think they hidden and they just sit there. I've noticed, it's on YouTube. I actually was netting a fish for a kid, and I took my pole and handed it to the mom, grabbed the net, and I went to net the fish, and I missed, and I fell in the water. And she was laughing, holding my pole, and I'm sitting in the water, she laughing, her kids laughing, and her pole went off. The fish was still eating with me in the water right by the boat. And no joke. And he was there that day when I called you in, yeah. So he called me in first, and then I called him.
What do you mean? The one that you were netting bit the other hook?
No, she had my pole just holding
you
it.
mean you splashed and you got
Yeah, I was in the water, and she was just holding it, and a red came up and ate with me standing 4 feet from the pole. So after that day, I was like,
Must not have seen you.
yeah. You kidding? I'm blind.
And 2 mile on that too, those tide's moving, a lot of those fish are coming through, they're not just sitting there.
Yeah.
Those fish are coming through, going back out to the pass or going back out on the flats. If you're towards the end of the tide, those fish they're coming through, they're not just staged there. So if you're making noise, those fish might have been 100 yards down the mangrove line and not even knew you were there.
Yeah.
They're coming through, so
Yeah.
I find that out a lot too.
Yeah.
Hey Mike, how much do you chum when you redfish?
Chum.com.
I like the chum heavy. Everybody, if you ever fish with me, I like to fill my live well up. And when you ready, you looking at it, you thinking, man, we got enough. I'm like, nah, one more throw. One more throw. And the reason is, like when I'm fishing schools of red, if we see a school of red coming up, I tell everybody to get ready to throw. And when they throw in and when everybody hook up, the first thing I do, I go to the live well, grab some chums, and start chumming while they fighting the fish. And all I'm trying to do is keep those fish there. Because they moving, they'll freight train around, they'll move around, and they get right here and we hook up. If nobody don't chum, where everybody fighting fish, they just keep going. Then once you get your fish off, you take a picture, you throw it back out there, it's gone, they gone. So if you keep chumming, you like designate one person in the boat to keep the chumming. I usually, even when I'm fun fishing, whoever don't hook up, I tell them to grab some chummers and start chumming, you know. So, and that's mainly on the flats. When I'm fishing the bushes, I don't chum. I know some people that do. I don't like to do it because I like to put that one, just have them go after one bait under there. And I don't want to, if they sitting under there, I don't want to throw a bunch of bait in there and have them move out and pull off whatever I'm trying to fish and move down. So that's just me personally. I know some people that chum bushes.
I do chum bushes sometimes. If the bite's slow, I try to pull the fish to where I'm at. If I know I'm on a good spot that holds fish and they're not there, I will chum, but I don't chum a live baits. I'll cut up a bunch of white baits, bat them up, throw them in there, let them set, get that stink in there. Hopefully those fish will come in there to me. It does work sometimes when the bite's really slow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, both of you. When you hook your bait, nose, tail, dorsal, back, where do you hook them?
I throw hook my baits. Behind the
Throw?
gills, bottom gills, and off with the tail. Tail's gotta go.
Yeah. What he said. That's all he said.
I don't bite them off. I cut them off with scissors, but
Look, you know, I can't tell everything.
Wait, you cut their tail off?
yeah,
Yeah, I bite mine.
he bites his off.
Yeah, I grab it and
But
bite it.
why do you do that? Why do you do that?
I do it for 3 reasons. First of all, you throw a big white bait in a hole where he knows something's moving, he's coming back to the boat. He's not gonna stay in there. Unless that fish eats him immediately when you put him in there.
True.
He's gonna come out of that hole. Second of all, you cut that tail or bite that tail, it's putting off scent. If that fish is 10, 15 feet either side, he's gonna smell that bait, he's gonna come to him. Third of all, he's putting off a super vibration with his tail cut off because he can't swim. He's swimming twice as erratic as he'd normally be swimming. So he's putting off vibration,
Man.
the fish is gonna pick it up, and he's gonna key on it.
Y'all gonna have my kid in the live well cutting all the bait tails off before we even get to go fishing.
Yeah.
Don't do it till you put a hook in him.
Yeah. And I like I said, I used to cut the tails on them, and then I was fishing with my homeboy back then. He was biting them, and I'm like, oh, I ain't doing that. So, and then I went, we was filming a show, and the guy had a nice boat, and I didn't want to, if you ever fished with me, when we get to the house, when we get finished, it looked like a massacre in there. There's blood everywhere. So I didn't want to put blood all over his boat, so I started biting him off the edge of the boat, and they filmed the whole thing, so when people see that, they're going to think, oh, that's what he, but now that's what I do. I stuck with it, and so I bite them off for the same reason he said.
Get little scales in your mouth?
Yeah, it gets stuck in there sometimes.
I bet you don't know bird feel like that.
Kind of get used to it, you know.
That scale blends in with that silver beard.
Yeah.
I feel you.
I like juicy, so it ain't bad. You just, when you bite it, you gotta make sure you put your finger right over his butthole. If you don't, if you bite it and your finger ain't on that butthole, it will squirt right over your
This is a man talking from experience.
That's gotta be the truth.
Do you have any pictures of that?
There's probably a video somewhere.
Yeah.
Next video, that's
That's what I want to see. I want to see that.
Hanging from the beard.
I mean, I had a guy, you know, he was like, I'm gonna bite one too, and he bit past the butthole, and then he was like coughing. So I looked at his bait, and it was like a half a bait left. I said, do this bite. I ain't say eat it. I said,
So you get snapper fish.
yeah. Anyway, that biting the tail off or cutting the tail off, like he said, it gives off scent and it keeps the bait in that area. And we've all have been fishing with whole bait, and you throw it out there, and they outrun the fish. I mean, it just a snook will pop at it a couple of times, and that white bait will go, and
He's out there.
that snook, they'll just stop, especially with it being hot the way it is. They ain't about chasing nothing. The fish are real lazy and sluggish, so you want to throw something in there that ain't gonna.
If that fish is sitting right there in that zone, he's gonna look at it long enough, he's gonna eat it.
Yeah.
So, hit on catching bait while we're talking about some bait?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you always stick with the small hook, or do you ever change that up, or?
No, I stick with that hook for everything. I recently went triple tail fishing, and the guy was using a bigger hook, and I stuck with